of course, we begin with a piece of news that certainly our thoughts and prayers are with all of the people in Tallahassee at Florida State University. For those of you who are unaware, yesterday, tragedy once again has struck. 2 people were killed and 5 wounded in a shooting at Florida State University in Tallahassee. Naturally, this is not a sports story, but given the fact that we cover a lot of sports at FSU, basketball, football, baseball, etc., certainly wanted to mention this at the top of the show, and I'm sure coverage everywhere that you could possibly find it continuing here for the distant future would be my guess. All right, let's get to some sports stories here. We'll start in New York. A new bill could be heading our way, and it could max the amount of money that you can bet on sports in the state of New York. How about this? A $5,000 daily betting cap could enter, and it's up for vote. It also includes maximum of 5 deposits per day, which means if you go broke 4 times, you can only do it one more time and make it a 5th. Also banning ads on promo boosts, bonus bets, and no sweat offers. And also, how about this? No ads in between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. or during live games. So New York seems to be taking responsible gambling pretty seriously. We'll see if a bill comes to pass. Meanwhile, it doesn't look like we'll have any clarity where Aaron Rodgers may or may not play in 2025. He said he's taking his time. He went on the Pat McAfee show and essentially has said that the draft is inconsequential for what he wants to do, may retire, may stay playing. He said that he also went to New York and met with the new general manager and essentially said that he didn't need to fly there because they could have just told him on the phone that he didn't need to come. They told him that they were moving on, and you saw the quote there. He also said that, you sure you want to play football? He said yes, and then he said that they're going in another direction. Which direction Aaron Rodgers chooses to go is really anybody's guess at this point, folks. The draft is next week. Doesn't seem like he's going to sign before then. But there is part of what Aaron Rodgers said. Yet, again, this is courtesy of the Pat McAfee show. Rodgers still TBD on 2025. That's the bottom line. Also TBD is Dame Lillard on whether or not he'll play in Game 2 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Seems like he's making some good progress here, but he's definitely out for Game 1, although it seems like that this blood-thinning medication that he's taking is working right now. And right now, we'll see if Lillard can play in Game 2. That would come up next week for Milwaukee against Indiana. Sacramento Kings are finalizing a deal to hire longtime NBA executive Scott Perry as their new GM. He was with the Kings in 2017. He also was with the Detroit Pistons. So Perry could be joining the Kings in the not-too-distant future. Look for that announcement coming later today or tomorrow. In Major League Baseball, the home run leader is a little bit of a surprise, to say the least. His name is Tyler Soderstrom. He hit his 9th home run yesterday as the A's beat the White Sox 8-0. Lawrence Butler, J.J. Bleday, Brent Rooker also homered, and the A's are playing good baseball. They've won 4 out of 5, and they're only 1 game under 500 this season, so even despite the move from Oakland to Sacramento, things seem to be going well, and that has Marcotte, their manager, in a good mood.
Today was a great win. These guys have obviously worked really hard, and, I think we've grinded through a few series, but to come in here and get a sweep was really good for the group, and before we head into Milwaukee.
I know we ask you about Soderstrom every day, but another home run today. Just what can you say about his continued success here?
Yeah, a home run off a lefty. That's a tough lefty. Just shows he's continuing to stay with his approach, and when you're hitting the ball hard, it sometimes gets frustrating. But when they obviously go over the fence, it's boarding. So he continues to be good. Staying disciplined to his zone and taking good at-bats.
Good at-bats for Riley Green as well. He was in a slump with the Tigers. He breaks out of it. 3 hits, 2 RBIs. The Tigers beat the Royals 6-1. That was the final. Randy Arozarena's time in Seattle is off to a good start again this season. Game-tying home run in the 9th inning and then a 2-run double in the 10th. Flair for the dramatic. He's always had it. The Mariners beat the Reds 11-7 in 10 innings, but the error was really the story. Ellie De La Cruz made his 5th. And his 6th error. Terry Francona, the manager of the Reds, didn't single out De La Cruz, but said that mistakes were made in the game.
Well, we made a lot of mistakes. I thought we played with a lot of heart, which is good. We just, we made too many mistakes to win a game like that today.
The 4 errors, major concern going forward, or did you flush this one?
Well, for today, it didn't help us. There's some plays that weren't errors that didn't get made. Made it really tough on Singer early on. He didn't have his best fastball today, and we prolonged that inning. It probably cost him an inning too. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just the errors that are on the board.
Yankees beat the Rays final 6-3. Ben Rice was the big winner in yesterday's game. For those of you who played anything with him in DFS, Ben Rice, 4 for 5, 2 RBIs, having a nice year too, batting over 300, OPS over 1,000. Bullpen also did their job. Jazz Chisholm Jr. argued a ball and strike in this game and was thrown out, but needless to say, Ben Rice thinks that his start is legit.
A little weird, being on the visiting side today, but just glad we were able to come out with a win.
Did you feel like early on, did it feel like you guys were lucky to only be down 3-1, or what was the kind of feeling there in the dugout when your pitchers were straining a bunch of their guys early?
Yeah, I think I don't think we felt that way at all. I think it was just on to the next inning, right? Just next pitch, keep winning pitches. Bullpen did a great job tonight, keeping us in it the whole way. And yeah, just kept putting us in a position to put some runs up.
Rangers sweep the Angels. They win 5-3 behind Kumar Rocker on the mound for Texas. Also, Bruce Bochy, the manager, he won his 2,183rd game, tying Dusty Baker for 7th all time. The story in Philadelphia right now is Christopher Sanchez. What a great start to the season he has had. And yesterday, he threw 7 innings and struck out 12 in a win against the San Francisco Giants. 11 of his strikeouts on changeups. He's been as good as advertised going into the season, and Rob Thompson almost speechless with the performance.
Yeah, it was as good as you're going to get, I think. Or as good as I've seen. A lot of swing and miss. It was just diving into the ground. They gave up the home run on a slider, and he hadn't thrown the slider in about 4 innings. So, yeah, he was really good today, and we needed that.
What was he doing different with his changeup?
I think he just had it. It's just one of those days where it was just coming out of his hand properly, and he had confidence in it, and he kept throwing it.
Gunnar Henderson's first home run is a big one for the Orioles. They beat the Guardians 6-2. Cleveland's lost 3 of 4. And also in Miami yesterday, the Diamondbacks complete the sweep. Pavin Smith homers in back-to-back games. Josh Naylor also homered as well. The Diamondbacks beat the Marlins 6-4. They've won 5 games in a row. As I mentioned, the NFL draft is coming up next week. A lot of smoke screens going on right now. Cleveland Browns throwing a few different smoke screens out there, so to speak. Their general manager, Andrew Berry, saying that Travis Hunter is a unicorn due to his versatility, actually compared him to Shohei Ohtani, saying that he could play both ways. It says you get a unicorn if you use them both ways. Here's Berry on the potential of drafting Travis Hunter.
I think and I'm going to use a crossboard now. It's a little bit like Ohtani, right? Where, when he's playing one side, he's an outstanding player. If he's a pitcher or he's a hitter, he's an outstanding player. You obviously get a unicorn if you use them both ways. Andrew? Yeah, I guess without getting too much into the specific planning, because he's not here. We have a decision, but that's something that's also unique, and it's something that, like I said, every team across the league would have to figure out.
Tre'Davious White re-signs a 1-year contract with the Buffalo Bills. It's where he started. He played on the Rams and Ravens last season. And also Ryan Ramczyk retires from the New Orleans Saints after playing there for 7 years. Justin Thomas leads at the RBC Heritage Open. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Pretty significant sports wagering story coming out yesterday. Potentially new legislature in the state of New York that could change the way that people bet on sports. Let's get into it with Sam McQuillan of Legal Sports Report. Sam, thanks for coming on the show here on this Friday. And, I did see, you obviously post on social media, and I know that there's an article up over at Legal Sports Report, but I think there's a pretty significant story, because if this does happen, a couple of things will change in our world of sports betting. First of all, you have the big state of New York basically saying we're not going to allow people to lose all their money betting on sports. There's going to be a limit to what you can do. And then the second part of this is that if this does go through, it could mean some limitations for other states around the country as well.
Yeah, New York is always a trendsetter when you talk about any kind of legislation, and it's the biggest market in the legal sports betting world. So it's no surprise we're focusing a lot of attention on a new bill that was just filed on Wednesday that could be the most aggressive restrictions we've seen so far on sports betting apps. This legislation introduced by Assemblymember Robert Carroll would cap the daily betting, the amount you're able to bet at $5,000 per user. So once you bet $5,000, you have to wait a whole 24 hours, and you can only do 5 deposits a day. It would also institute a ban on ads that promote any bonus bets, odds boost, and no sweat offers, which, as we know, are really central components of the sports betting marketing plan. It would also ban advertising between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. and during live sporting events, which we know is a huge time for sportsbooks to try to get users to sign up. And when most sportsbook ads actually run, the bill has just been referred to the Racing and Wagering Committee, which has historically supported industry-backed proposals. This obviously is not a proposal that the industry is in favor of, and it means it will face probably a lot of resistance in the legislature. But I'm not sure this bill really goes anywhere in terms of actually getting passed and implemented. But the fact that it was just introduced is a very important thing to note. It is the nation's largest betting market, and it mirrors a lot of similar proposals that we've seen on a federal level. New York has generated over $3 billion in tax revenue since launching sports betting in 2022. They have the highest tax rate in the nation. It's been a very tough market for books to pretty much break even on, but you can't really leave the market because then you're going to be ceding it to other players. Critics warn that it could drive high stakes bettors to offshore sports books where they don't have these kind of penalties or limits, or even to New Jersey, which obviously was a huge market when sports betting first launched. It was the state that basically got the sports betting ban overturned. But then once New York launched, lost a lot of money. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I don't really think it goes anywhere, but you never know what kind of language could get included somewhere down the line if there's some proposal. And New York is one of those states we've talked about a lot where they're considering other gaming changes, especially with online sports betting. So you don't know what will kind of be a concession and what will make it down the line there. But it's definitely something we're going to keep watching and see if other states, have any similar proposals down the line.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't, really heard, the term max bets anywhere since sports betting has become legal. I mean, some do have some restrictions based on games, some smaller college basketball games, football games as well. But I mean, there's a definitive line in the sand here if they choose to pass this through. All right, so sport event contracts, prediction markets, the story of the year for us here when we talk, Sam, and everyone over at Legal Sports Report. Some states say, okay, no problem. Other states say you got to pay your taxes like everybody else. So in this case, our latest story is the state saying no go, got to pay taxes, got to be like the rest of the sports gaming operators. I guess we'll just have to see what happens here.
Yeah, it's a similar story when we were, when I was on the show last year talking about daily fantasy sports and sort of the parlay products that they had that a lot of states said for sports betting. Now we're doing the same thing with these prediction markets, which companies like Kalshi, Robinhood, Crypto.com have been basically using to try to skirt sports betting laws, offer a very similar product. Tennessee is just the latest state to get involved in this, but they're actually the first one to ask the federal regulator to step in and shut down these sports prediction markets, which puts new pressure on the markets themselves. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission has been basically trying to figure out how they regulate this. It's under a new regime under President Trump. So it's been a while since they really have gotten all their ducks in a row. Meanwhile, you've had 9 states now take some action against them. A lot of them have sent cease and desists, arguing that what these companies are offering is actually real money wagers, and they're doing it in 50 states without sports betting licenses, without protections, without any of the taxes that we just talked about briefly. So you have the industry watching it to see if this can continue, and they're not subject to the same regulations on both fronts. So now momentum is basically building against these companies, all while we wait the CFTC to intervene here. We've had the federal court case in Nevada where the state just sent a cease and desist letter telling them to get out of the state. A judge overruled that, saying they can keep going until the CFTC really chimes in here. But meanwhile, they've handled a lot of money and they keep expanding. We had $500 million just on Kalshi was wagered on March Madness. And then they just launched MLB markets this week as well. So they're expanding basically while the CFTC is trying to figure out how to do things. And meanwhile, states are pushing back, telling them, if you're not licensed to do sports betting in the state, we want you to not offer this product. So we'll see, this is going to be a story we keep watching here, but we'll see when it all comes to a head. We'll see if anything, actually happens as a result of this. I would imagine there'll be a lot more lawsuits, and eventually it's all going to be decided in a court. But this is a very interesting development in this process that, again, only started in January, is when they first started offering these sort of sports prediction markets, which are very similar to sports betting, but they say don't want to be regulated as sports betting. It only started in January, and we're only a couple months into the year, and already it's rapidly expanding. We have now 9 states taking some kind of action against them.
Now, finally, this is a story I know that just popped on here about ESPN Bet. I know that, Sam, you mentioned we were going to talk about this here on social media. Okay, so I'm not positive here how this is going to work. I'm going to require a little bit of an explanation here. So they're calling it Mint Club, which essentially is some sort of way to link media or your app with sports betting. I'm going to need a little bit more here in terms of info here, how this works.
Yeah, Penn Entertainment has been one of those companies we've talked about for a long time. When are they going to actually make progress in sports betting? They have this partnership with ESPN, the ESPN sports betting app. So the latest thing they've done here is launch this new feature called Mint Club, which is only available to those who link their ESPN and ESPN Bet apps, which was, again, one of those core, selling points that they pushed out when they first did this ESPN deal. It will allow users to track their bets in the ESPN app as well as the ESPN Bet app. So if you go to the ESPN app to check your scores, to check how certain players are doing, you have all of the bets that you placed in ESPN in there as well. It's kind of similar to what other apps have done, but again, you can only do this if you link both apps, which is a really big thing that ESPN wants to push here. The last time they talked about account linking, which they only launched in November, you had only about 230,000 people had done it, which is less than 1% of ESPN users. So this is another move to try to promote people who use the ESPN app, people who use ESPN's core assets to download this app, to link them together so they can promote more of that personalization, take more into account of the teams you like, the sports you like, and try to feed you offers there. It's coming a little late in the game. Penn is obviously under a lot of pressure. They paid $1.5 billion to use ESPN. It's about a year and a half later, and we're just talking about this now, but in their case, it's better late than never. They want to promote the app. They're trying to retool it. They just hired a bunch of execs from FanDuel, a bunch of execs from Disney as well. So they're really trying to push this out and get ahead of it. And that's all while they're in a proxy fight. And the proxy fight is centered around their online sports betting failures and how much money they've wasted. So they're really trying to finally turn it around here. And Mint Club is just the latest kind of offering that is unique because of their ESPN partnership. We'll see how many people adopt it. They announce earnings in about a month. So they're going to hope to get that 230,000 number much, much higher. You don't want to have 1% of your users linked. So we'll see, how it's working out for them in a few months.
Yep, I would agree. And by the way, no offense to ESPN Bet, but if this was such a fantastic idea that's revolutionary and it's going to be a great idea, then why didn't they do it 6 months ago? That would be my question. Anyway, Sam, have a great rest of your weekend. I will talk to you next week. Thanks again.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Craig.